Good evening and welcome to On the Record, our new show focused on current affairs on TVP World. I'm your host Adam Jasser. Today we're going to look at the puzzling government reshuffle by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. The official explanation is that the shake-up is meant to prepare Ukraine for a tough winter as it is fighting off the Russian aggression. But you don't have to be a genius to see there is more to this story that meets the eye. To find out what, I'm joined today by Marija Mezentseva, a Ukrainian MP from the President's Servant of the People Party, who has been a key figure in Ukraine's drive to join the European Union. Marija, welcome to our program.
Thank you, Adam. Hello, thank you for having me.
Also joining us is Bohdan Nahaylo, the editor-in-chief of Kyiv Post, who is also a former senior Amnesty International and UN official. Thank you for being with us.
Good afternoon from Kyiv, where it's very hot in all senses.
Well, let's hope our program is going to be as hot. But before we start our discussion, let us watch this short report.
The Ukrainian government recently underwent its largest reshuffle since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion. 7 ministers were replaced this week, among them former Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, who, for years, has been one of Ukraine's most vocal representatives in the West. Ukraine's new foreign minister is Andriy Sybiha, once a diplomat at the Ukrainian embassy in Warsaw and later Kuleba's deputy. Today, he is a member of President Volodymyr Zelenskyy's inner circle. One crucial minister whose head was supposed to roll is Olha Stefanishyna, well known in the West for championing Ukraine's European aspirations. Surprisingly, she not only retained her post but also got an additional job as Justice Minister.
When it comes to Ukraine's position in the world, it will be a sort of continuation of the politics of Kuleba because he was his deputy for a very long time.
The reshuffle took place 2 weeks before Zelenskyy's planned visit to the US, where he is expected to meet President Joe Biden and other top-ranking US officials to discuss his latest proposals on bringing the war in Ukraine to an end.
So, Marija, you're a close ally of the president. Can you tell us more about the reasons for this reshuffle?
So the so-called reshuffle, or let's say the dismissal and appointment, was very much awaited for a long time. There were several ministers serving as temporarily appointed for a very long time. For instance, this is strategically important Ministry of ecology, and I think the lady who was appointed and used to be deputy minister is efficient, is responsible and well prepared for that. With regards to other ministries and people who were moved within the ministries or were transferred from presidential office to the ministries and vice versa. For instance, it happened to the lady minister who was responsible for temporarily occupied territories, the policies with regards to IDPs.
Marija, if I could just interrupt you for 1 second there, but you know, for many people around the world, Mr. Kuleba was a familiar name by now. And, you know, getting rid of him is puzzling to everyone. So what is the rationale?
Well, first of all, I would like to tackle this information. I was approached today in Council of Europe meeting in Paris by my Austrian colleague, and he said that there were several attempts to vote on his, not dismissal, but his letter of being taken from the post. Well, there was none. The parliament, when there was a siren in Kyiv, and parliament stopped the vote for a moment, and then they continued yesterday. I was on a trip, so I was not voting for that. With regards to Dmytro, personally, the president was very clear at our closed meeting among Servant of the People Party that there is no conflict, and for instance, me dealing with foreign affairs daily, 24/7, I have never heard of any. So Dmytro was conducting his job for EU and NATO integration further on at the posture of Minister of Foreign Affairs quite efficiently, and President reconfirmed that. He remains in the team. We are not announcing which possible postures he might take in Ukraine, but most importantly, I think abroad. And you've shown a photograph from the Ukraine compact and Mr. President presenting it.
Right.
Was in Iraq.
Okay.
You asked the concern.
But if
I want to tackle all these concerns that someone is trying to dismiss the most effective managers or ministers. That is not the case. We have had also very human explanations, friends. Sometimes you have a burnout. Sometimes you are offered the ministry and you don't agree to that. You decide, to stay at the local level or whatever you are in the parliament. Sometimes things can't be just taken, as they are in international media right now. That this is a
these are all fair points. These are all fair points, and you're right to say that reshuffles happen from time to time. But I would like now, this is the official version now, so I would like to hear from Bogdan what he thinks about it. And, we have heard comments saying that this reshuffle is really about the president consolidating power rather than making the government more efficient. So what is your take, Bogdan?
Look, I'm one of those who shares great concern about what's happened. I can understand Marija. She's part of the establishment now. She's part of a government, of a parliament that yesterday was described by one of its members and increasingly by Western analysts as a rubber stamping institution. It's not really functioning as a parliament. The decision-making is all concentrated in Bankova, in the president's office, and not necessarily in the president's hands. His great Cardinal Andriy Yermak seems to have been the foreign minister for quite some time now, and Kuleba was used as a representative of Ukraine, as a communicator, but his ministry, I hope Marija will agree with me if she's objective, it's been sidelined. The foreign ministry is not what it used to be. So I think the concern here is the secretive manner in which this abrupt change was carried out. Where was the notification of the population about what was coming? Yes, there were rumors for many months that changes were happening, but we see a pattern. We see how Zaluzhny, the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces, was dismissed and a place, as Marija says, found abroad for him in London as an ambassador, and Kuleba will probably be offered a place. Incidentally, one of his very close aides told us, Kyiv Post, yesterday, that he didn't go willingly. So let's dispel with that myth that it was all arranged.
Well, I'm glad you're bringing this up because I remember very well the controversy back then. And again, I'm looking at it from a perspective of outside.
Yeah. May I just finish? It wasn't just Zaluzhny. Before that, we had the Minister of Defense going after weeks of speculation. We had the ambassador in London, a very capable ambassador, dismissed overnight for damage control after a kind of impulsive statement by the president. So what we wrote yesterday in Kyiv Post is that this does not smack of reshuffling, but this smacks of a consolidation of an oligarchy. Oligarchy not ruled by rich people, but a small group of people running a country. And that is worrying in a democracy.
I'm sorry, colleague.
Okay, Marija, yes, what would be your response to this?
No, and I need to catch my flight soon. Who is an oligarch then? Why are we calling that an oligarchy appointment? This is so wrong to do.
Well,
President Zelenskyy is not oligarch or not ruled by any possible very few oligarchs who remain in Ukraine.
Marija, look at the definition of...
Okay, well, let's perhaps,
because
Marija, but let me,
and they will say that oligarchs appoint ministers in Ukraine.
Yeah, no, but let me maybe maybe oligarchy is a loaded term, so let's avoid that. But would you question Bogdan's assertion that it is a way of consolidating power by the president, and perhaps there are some disagreements over policy, which would be natural? But why aren't they communicated if there are some differences between ministers or other important people?
I think it's important. Marija doesn't seem to understand that in Ukraine, the term oligarch meant a rich person using their influence to control political processes. But oligarchy, in the sense that it was used in the classic way.
Bogdan, let's not get into semantics. I understand your point, but let us focus on policy differences. Is this reshuffle due to some policy differences? Is it because, for example, some ministers don't like the course of the war or some of the decisions that Zelenskyy is making? What is at heart? Is that policy or is it just a pure power struggle?
It's not a power struggle because Zelenskyy is firmly in control with Yermak and the government. There has not been any divergences in politics. Yes, there are individuals from the opposition, like Honczarenko, for example, from President Poroshenko's party, who said openly in parliament, he said, what is happening? We've turned into a rubber stamping institution. What we need is not simply a government of unity. We need a government of national salvation. And I think for myself, when I look at Churchill, for example, he had a war cabinet. He had members from the Labour Party and others saving the country in its darkest hours. And this is what has been missing, that it's been a one-man show. I'm not saying that in any way Zelenskyy is a dictator. It remains a democracy, but it's very much the power and the influence is centered around one or two or three key people. And this is, diverting from the notion of democracy.
Right. Well, this sort of leads me to the next question, which is, obviously the world's eyes are on Ukraine's military campaign in Kursk and its resistance against the Russian invasion. And yes, Zelenskyy is this oversized figure familiar around the world and so on and so forth. So no one really questions his leadership. But, there is obviously some political domestic scene as well, which is perhaps hidden from viewers around the world. So is this part of some, again, power struggle, lack of consensus, and where is it going?
This is the strange thing, that it's not overtly a power struggle. You can't identify the people who are opponents, apart from, say, the former president, Poroshenko. Yulia Tymoshenko is very quiet, and others are very quiet. In fact, Yulia Tymoshenko's party, which was in opposition, voted for these changes. Poroshenko's party didn't. Some of the old former Yanukovych supporters voted for these changes. So, on the one hand, Zelenskyy and his inner circle have managed to build this coalition. We don't know what has been offered in return to push through these personnel changes.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this question then. Are the opinion polls showing that perhaps support for Zelenskyy is, falling and he feels an urge to consolidate, or what is it? What is it?
The latest opinion polls show that there has been a slight fall in the president's popularity, not grave. He still commands the support of close to two-thirds, well over 50% of the population, close to two-thirds, a bit like in the voting. But 53% in the latest poll do not have the president.
I think the connection with Kyiv is breaking up now. So, Marija, can you hear me? Right. So, I would like to start where you finished, saying, reshuffles happen. But, I'm still a bit puzzled because on the one hand, they do happen in democracies when ministers run out of steam or become a liability. But sometimes a leader needs a new beginning, and that's also a good pretext to stage a reshuffle. But, is this something that causes this beyond this? Like that, are there any disagreements in the president's team about the conduct of the war, or how this conversation with the Americans is going to be?
Conversations are great on every possible stage. We're doing the most at our capacity, from President Zelenskyy to every member of the team in the governmental offices, or the posters in his office, or in the parliament, where we have democracy, which is at least 6 parties and political groups. And therefore, I must say that we have no backstage, disagreements or whatever that might sound. I don't think there is any country in the world which have gone or is going through the daily losses of civilians in such number, of targeted critical and civilian infrastructure in such number, continuously fulfilling its obligations under the opened chapter of EU negotiations, and continuing to be aligned with NATO standards, and that's shown in the recent reports. At the same time, continuing to do the fundamentals, which is the judiciary system reform, which is the anti-corruption reform, and many others which have to be filled on the ground at the bottom level where democracy is coming from.
Okay, fair enough.
I must reconfirm that when we have different views, we discuss, and this is what it's all about. So if you ask if there's any different views on the foreign policy, no, we are following the peace plan, the 10 points.
Okay.
For each and every one of us, it can mean different things, but they're very clear internally and externally.
So basically, the bottom line from you as the official version is that, okay, this is a reshuffle to re-energize the government, refocus on key challenges, but basically there are no huge disagreements.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
We are facing very cold and I would say challenging winter. We say it every year since February 2022. Sorry, but it seems after the recent attack, where we lost 50% of our energy generation, it will be hot.
Okay, in that case, I think this is a good point to really move to the next topic, which is, you know, this unity that you say is there. We will return to you, Bogdan, in a minute, but I would like us to focus now on this upcoming visit by President Zelenskyy in the United States, because he will have to present a united front there. Let's watch this short material about that.
The plan has been prepared, and I think it's only fair that I present this plan to the US President first. The success of this plan depends on him, whether they will give us what is in this plan or not, whether we will be free to use what is in this plan or not. And since everything is delayed a little bit in life, I think I will present this plan to him at a meeting in September. And I think that somehow it will be right to hand this plan over to both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, because we don't know who will be the President of the United States.
So, Maria, let me start with you again. What can you tell us more about this plan? What is it? What is his plan? What is his idea? What is he going to present to the Americans?
So currently 40 working groups based on the affiliated countries who have signed the first document being designed for the peace formula meeting in Switzerland, and many more other experts at the political and technical level have joined these working groups. So I cannot, openly say what's in there because it's a work in progress.
But can you give us a general direction?
They're definitely based on the very, very famous 10 points. The ceasefire, the withdrawal of the troops, the exchange all for all, prisoners of war, bringing back our civilians who can't be taken.
Excuse me, Maria, are you telling me that President Zelenskyy is not going to bring anything new to the table?
Of course he will, but we cannot reveal the new elements before he presents it, as he said at his annual press conference in Kyiv to Madam Kamala and Mr. Trump. I am not eligible to reveal it on the news right now.
Fair enough. You cannot go on the record with this, I understand.
Of course
but maybe let's turn then to Bogdan. We know that the Americans were surprised by the extent of the Kursk offensive. So do you think Zelenskyy's visit is also aimed, apart from presenting this updated peace plan, but also limit the damage? And is it a damage control exercise? Is he going to explain his immediate war aims there?
Look, I don't think there's immediate war aims. I think he's going to consolidate on the points that have already been agreed recently in Geneva, as Ms. Mezentseva implied, and to build on that. He's in a horrible position because he doesn't know what the outcome is going to be in November. Biden's people, Biden is not in a position to take decisions now. He's very much a lame duck president because Harris is poised to become president if she wins. We don't know at the end of the day what Trump's position is, claiming that he can end the war in a day. So he's in a horrible position where he has to find the middle ground. I think the key message is to Biden, please, at least tell us that you want Russia to be defeated. Don't just say, we'll be with you for as long as it takes. Give us the weapons to strike the Russians. Let us conduct our defensive operations in such a way that we can hit the airfields, the bases, the military strongholds in Russia from which they are attacking us.
Yes, but in a sense, you're not answering my question, which was, it seemed for a while that the Americans were surprised by the extent of this Kursk operation, and that there is some fear in Washington that Zelenskyy, in his desperation, which you so clearly described, might just want to try to pull the Americans into the conflict directly, or NATO for that matter. So is he going to, apart from asking the usual, making the usual pleas for help, is he going to try to sort of contain the American concern over this?
Adam, let's not be naive. Politics is about not only statements, but it's about what is said not openly behind the scenes. I'm sure the Americans knew about Kursk. Don't tell me that the Ukrainians went in there simply overnight and the Brits and the Americans and perhaps even the Poles didn't know about it. On the surface, I'm sure this is the position to be held, because it's not good for America to be seen on the eve of an election, Biden, that they were supporting a Ukrainian push into Russia. So
okay, so the final question to you: Do you believe that the Americans, the Germans, NATO powers, Poland, and Ukraine are still on the same page when it comes to the conduct of the war?
Not entirely, because quite a large group of Europeans, an increasing one, wants Ukraine to have the one arm behind its back that has been tied as it's defending itself, meaning the permission to use weapons obtained from the West to hit into Russia, not to conquer Russia, not to seize Russian lands, but in a defensive way to stop the aggression from where it's being launched. That is the divisive line, that the Americans are undecided. As I keep saying, they've got the election coming up, and it really depends on Harris. Maybe in the debates, she will come clean and say, well, personally, I think we should. That's for her to say. But she
okay, so this is, in other words, you're saying this is the aim of the visit. Marija, I'm sorry we had bad connection, but yours is the last word as we are winding down this program. So what is your bottom line about the purpose of President Zelensky's visit to the States? If you can hear us. No, it seems we lost Marija. And with this, we conclude this first episode of On the Record. Marija, Bogdan, thank you both for being with us. My name is Adam Jasser. Thank you for watching.